Hi, this is Rob Shaw. I'm the founder of the Mountain Tactical Institute. Welcome to the MTI podcast. A little bit different today. I'm going to focus on some fitness questions I get commonly and talk a little bit about testing for rock climbing. One of the most common questions I get for athletes who are interested in MTI programming always begins the same way. They want to do a program, but they have some issue and they want to know if the program can be adjusted to their issue. For example, I recently received a question from an individual who's in his mid-50s, interested in the backcountry hunting programming that we have. And he said, hey, are there any adjustments made or can it be made for someone who's my age? You know, I'm 56 or 55, or I can't remember specifically. And my answer to him is the same as everyone. I design and MTI designs programming not for the specific athlete, but for the fitness demands of the event. So let's just stay on the backcountry hunting. There's no slow elk or slow mule deer or whatever you're chasing in the wild there for guys who are, or for hunters who are in their mid-50s. I'm 56. So I kind of know how I've slowed down over the years, but there's no animals that are just tailored for me. They're a little bit slower than the other animals. Likewise, the animals are up and over, and elevation gain, elevation loss. You're going to be, if you're bow hunting, you're going to be moving through deadfall. If you do down game, you still got to haul out multiple heavy loads on your back, up to 5 miles or more maybe. And we're talking 70-pound loads. If you're doing it well, you're not on trails. So you're in foliage and, like I said, in timber, deadfall. It's a serious fitness demand to do backcountry hunting, self-supported, where you're in there carrying your camp on your back and carrying the game out on your back after you down something. And the fitness demands for that are the same for everybody. And it doesn't matter what you come to the party with. You may be a 130-pound woman. You may be a strapping 35-year-old CrossFit champion. Or you may be like this gentleman, a 56-year-old guy, and he slowed down and has achy knees and maybe a hip replacement like I have, etc. The fact is the fitness demands are the same, and the programming for those fitness demands is the same no matter the athlete. And so what I generally tell athletes in this situation is to start the programming and see how you do. And in this case, for him and maybe somebody who's not fit, most of our programming, well, all of it, generally is a timeline. So in this case, for example, backcountry hunting preseason training plan is 8 weeks long. And these plans are progressive. In other words, they get harder as you work through the plan. But if you start week 1 and you're getting smoked, a couple things occur. First, you either suffer through it, which many athletes have done. After a couple weeks, you catch up. Or you have to take a step back, take more rest, perhaps start at a less intense training plan and then move to this one. The point is, for someone who needs special consideration just because of fitness or age, my answer to them is always the same. Start earlier and be prepared to take more rest and move the calendar to the right. So if you have a backcountry hunting trip coming up and you intend to start the plan 8 weeks out and your fitness is suspect, well, then go ahead and start at 12 weeks out. And if you need more time to work through the plan and get all the programming in, then take that more time. But again, the fitness demands are the same, and the program is designed to train you for those fitness demands of the event, not for the specific athlete. A lot of times I'll get questions for athletes who worry about their fitness. And one of the first things I do is I email back, I ask, what's your age, weight, and height? I want to identify with those 3 factors athletes who may be seriously deconditioned. So if you're a 5'4" man and you weigh 300 pounds you're likely not going to be able to start the backcountry hunting training plan. And with those 3 questions, I can kind of tell really quick whether or not you're reasonably fit to begin one of our plans. I also always ask what training you've been doing, because you can be, relatively slim and still be severely deconditioned. And then also what training experience you have. MTI, I have developed a few training plans that help prepare people for more intense training plans later. We have the military on-ramp plan for athletes who want to begin our daily military programming, or one of our selection plans. In the backcountry hunting example, I have a 52-week packet of plans, and the whole thing is progressive. And so it's designed to take someone who isn't really fit or used to that type of fitness, uphill movement under load, and progressively build them up to be able to complete all the programming and be extremely fit for backcountry hunting right before the season starts. We also have a mountaineering and hiking prep plan. We actually have an assessment. I believe it's 30 minutes of step-ups, and if you get 400 or more, then you're ready to move on. If not, then you want to step with this, start with this plan. But it's another way that I helped identify and help athletes who aren't very fit get ready for the programming that's to come. But again, because of the nature of the activities that we train for, most of the activities that I program for were the events, military selections, mountaineering trips, backcountry hunting, etc., are pretty damn intense, and the programming reflects that. And I think that the other element of this is for the athlete to think about is you're not special. There's nothing special about you individually. In this case, we had a military selection, or deep in the backcountry on your own. You're on your own. There's nothing special about you, and it can be really humbling. And if you go into training for an activity like that, thinking that you are special or need special considerations, it's just going to be a mental weight that you're going to need to carry and overcome eventually to be successful. And so I try to get that across too, that there's nothing special about you. Everybody has to do the work. There are no shortcuts. It's grinding, but it works. It's effective. And if you put in the work and you put in the time, you'll be fit for that activity. It's not going to guarantee success. It's not going to guarantee that you harvest a monster elk or pass selection. There's lots of other factors involved, but at least from the fitness side, you'll be prepared. Another question I get often and frequently, especially from military members, is a way that they can train year-round and be ready to max their military PFT at a moment's notice. And my answer is always no. The only way to do that is to train for the PFT all the time. And if you do train for the PFT all the time, some things are going to happen. First, eventually you're going to plateau. In other words, you're going to quit getting stronger or better at the PFT events, and you're just going to quit progressing. Second, there's a good chance of overuse injury. If you're doing push-ups every day, eventually your shoulders are going to tell you to stop, and you'll need to take a break. It's going to become mentally stale. And I've heard this from many military members, especially line unit, Army and Marine units members who are like, our squad leaders just, push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, run every day. And that stuff just becomes stale mentally. And finally, perhaps most important, you're not going to be training mission direct fitness. And what I mean by that is the military PFTs are designed to test member fitness, but there's more stuff involved there. It's a way to do evaluation of military members as part of their evaluation reports. It's also a way to, there are also other considerations that they have to in place. What I mean by that is the tests have to be run efficiently. There has to be considerations on equipment, et cetera, et cetera. And in terms of the mission direct fitness, especially for infantry, someone in the infantry, is one of the major factors in being in the infantry is rucking. You're going to be carrying load all the time. And no military fitness assessment that I've seen official has a rucking component. The Marine Corps PFT, the Marine Corps CFT, the Army ACFT, none of them have a rucking component, even though rucking, working movement under load, is a huge and primary mission direct fitness demand of being in the infantry. Why they don't have those, I'm not sure, but they don't. And so the fact is, if you just train for the ACFT and then get deployed, your rucking fitness is going to be weak, and you're going to suffer at least the first few weeks of deployment until your rucking fitness catches up. So that's another reason not to train for the PFTs year round, is that training that way won't prepare you for the real thing, which is what we call the mission direct fitness. So our approach is to train day to day your mission direct fitness. And for in this case, an infantry, a soldier in infantry, that means a high relative strength, military endurance, which is running and rucking, chassis integrity, which is our functional core training, tactical agility, and short work capacity, especially work capacity that has a repeat sprinting focus. And it's designed to mimic movement under fire, where you're sprinting, hopping down, moving, sprinting, etc. And then rarely are these PFTs surprise, especially the official military PFTs. They're scheduled. People know well ahead when they're coming. And so what we recommend is when you know a PFT is coming, to drop out of your mission direct programming and do a PFT specific plan or PFT specific training in the weeks right before your PFT. If you want to do your best on your PFT, and you should because it's part of your evaluation, then absolutely drop out of mission direct training. Don't worry about it and just train for the PFT. Our PFT plans, most of them are 5 to 6 weeks long. And if you're fit, you could even, do 3 weeks or 4 weeks. But if you train specifically for the PFT, push-ups, pull-ups, 3RM deadlifts, etc., get through the PFT and then immediately drop back into mission direct training. Sorry about the phone there. So that's the way to kind of train for those. And this philosophy is the same that I apply for all of our programming. Same is true for law enforcement PFTs. The same is true for mountain athletes who have a season coming up. In other words, don't train if you're a super committed backcountry skier. Don't train for backcountry skiing year round. You're going to overtrain. You're going to plateau. It's going to get mentally stale. You might injure yourself. You want to train for backcountry skiing season in the weeks directly before the season, and then you can hit the season in shape and not risk those other factors. So those are just a couple of ways that I think makes MTI programming different, and hopefully you'll understand my philosophy in moving forward in doing the programming. Finally, this week, Charlie, our COO, did a write-up on studies and what the research says about fitness assessments for climbing, specifically rock climbing. And some of the fitness assessments that are used have been used previously in studies that have a correlation to high climbing ability, include a dynamometer test where you squeeze a dynamometer for your grip strength, a dead hang assessment where you're hanging from a fingerboard for time, assessment hanging from a 45-degree wall, and a hip and a shoulder mobility test. What we have found and what these studies have found, especially with the grip test, is there is a direct link between finger strength and finger strength endurance to climbing ability. And the best climbers have really high levels of finger strength and finger strength endurance. Those two are different, but they have high levels of both. The problem with what the literature has designed discovered as their fitness assessments is they don't take into account the really high level of technique ability that makes such a huge difference in rock climbing. And I've seen this time and time again, especially with men who have zero technique, but really high levels of natural finger strength endurance and grip strength. And initially when they start climbing, can climb really above their technique level because they can just muscle through it. They almost don't use their feet at all. They just climb up, the bouldering problem or the wall or whatever. And they almost just dyno up it or just walk up it with their grip strength and hardly use their feet at all. One of the things you discover if you work a lot of climbers is there's a reason that initially at least many women are better climbers than men. It's because women naturally don't have that finger and grip strength. They can't muscle their way up and they need to learn to climb with their feet. And if you work with a lot of climbers, and especially the higher levels, you'll learn that even though finger strength makes a huge difference in climbing, that they'll always be coached to climb with your feet first, move your feet first. Feet are the most important. And so having a high level of finger strength and grip strength, especially starting out climbing, can actually be a negative and hold you back in terms of your progression. I have messed with all of these assessments in terms of figuring out the best way to measure and train for climbing, rock climbing specifically, and have developed, used fingerboard dead hangs, campus board intervals, pinch hangs, long sessions of constant movement on angled boards for climbers. All these tools to train this really specific finger and grip strength and strength endurance. But in terms of assessments for climbing ability, the one assessment that I keep coming back to is what is called the VSUM, and it's a 50-minute long assessment where the athlete or the climber has to take and climb, or he or she gets to count 8 bouldering problems towards a total. And so if bouldering problems are rated on a V scale, so the easiest bouldering problem is a V0 or a V1, and the most difficult, I think they're up to like V15 now. So for example, if in 50 minutes you successfully climb 8 V1 problems, then your VSUM is a sum of all those problems, the rating, and your VSUM for that 50-minute effort or that assessment would be 8. And what we found is that we've applied this to many climbers, and it's become a key part of our programming. In fact, a significant part of our programming in not only training climbers to climb, rock climbers, but also to evaluate their ability. There are there's some problems with this assessment. The major problem is it's really difficult to do this at a bouldering gym. Where you really need to do this is with a moon board or a similar board. And these are climbing apparatus that are developed that are able to use the same set of holds and design thousands of programs on the same set of holds. It's hard to describe. Just look up moon board or Google moon board. It's moon, MOON board, and you'll see the idea. The reason is at a typical bouldering gym, you have different route setters, and one route setter may think this problem is a V4 and the other route setter may think it's a V2. So there's no consistency. And the moon board, we feel, is fairly consistent in terms of the ratings. And secondly, I can't tell you how many times that training climbers at a bouldering gym where the bouldering problems were changed because the climbing staff needs to change up the bouldering problems, and all of a sudden all of the progression you've made is in question now because the new problems aren't consistent with the old ones. It's just a pain. So you need a moon board or something similar. But regardless, the VSUM is by far the best evaluation that I found of climbing ability, and it is also the best way to train, I feel, climbing specific fitness, which includes technique. If you only have one thing to do a VSUM. The fact is, at the 50-minute effort, it's not like, in 50 minutes, the athlete can only climb 8 limited to 8 problems. He or she can climb as many problems as possible or as they want, but only the highest 8 get counted towards their V-sum. And what this means is there's a significant strength and strength endurance component to this that comes naturally. Also some strategy. But what is unique about the V-sum is it trains technique at the same time it trains strength. And in an artificial setting with the moon board. It's really unique in all the athletes that I've worked with and all the types of athletes and sports that I've designed for. The moon board and the V-sum is unique in its ability to train fitness and technique in a very progressible and consistent way. There's nothing like it that I found in any other sport. So if you're a climber, a rock climber, or if you're interested in climbing, or you're just interested in this idea, just go to our website and search for V-sum. It's the letter V-SUM, and you can read all about it. Okay, that's it for this week's podcast. If you have any questions, just email me, rob@mtntactical.com, rob@mtntactical.com, and we'll talk to you next week.